What's going on, everybody? I hope everybody is doing well. And for anyone that doesn't know me, my name is Ray McKenna. Quick introduction: 17 years in the fitness industry. I've worked in over 10 gyms throughout the world. I've worked in like three or four different high-profile sports clubs, and I still work in the fitness industry today. And I've also taken two masters along my pathway and over 10 plus qualifications. But I do have a responsibility every single day and to keep on top of the research, which I'm about to share with you right now. And hopefully I can help one person with what I'm about to share. So as you know, different research comes out a lot of times throughout the world and things change. But what happens is it's easy for me to go and put this little screenshot that I have here and say that an 8 hour time restricted eating is linked to 91% higher risk of cardiovascular death. And an individual can get really, really scared at that. They can look at it and then it can go all over the internet and all over YouTube and everywhere. And then before you know it, people think that fasting causes increase in cardiovascular death. So first off, this was epidemiology studies, which is a collection of amount of data from years of fasting and surveys and different kind of stuff. Through they done for the nutrition when they collected, I think it was 20,000 people throughout years of just tracking stuff up. Now, the thing about fasting is, right, because I have a lot of clients that I put on fasting. I fast myself a lot of the times. I think fasting is extremely beneficial, but it depends on why you're fasting. Because I'm going to break that down right now before you look into this, because this is like an 8 hour window of fasting, which is the typical thing. So, the first most important thing about fasting, all right, is that it's just a name, all right? It's a name. And if you looked into, say, you have Sigma Nutrition, Danny Lennon, and they've got unbelievable work done on circadian rhythms and how circadian rhythms, like finding an absolute like time window that suits your needs for the reason of like that you're doing it for personal preference. Makes sense? You might have a busy lifestyle, you might have stuff going on inside of your week, but then you find that because remember your circadian rhythms adapts, which is your 24-hour body clock. Okay, your 24-hour body clock. Now, Askar Jukendrup, who was possibly the best scientist that we have in the world, done a whole conclusion on all of this. And what fasting really is, it's just, and I know this anyhow, it's just like intermittent caloric control. And what it is like, if you look into the first law of thermodynamics, which is like energy must be either stored or if not destroyed. Now, people just think hit your calories. I am not saying that, but energy intake matters over the day. So whether you like prioritize that in an 8 hour window, whether you prioritize it in a 16-hour window, it's finding out what actually works for you and works for the individual. But if you're looking for all these autophagy benefits and all these other crazy things that you find on the internet, there's just no real research to actually even show that the long term effects of 8 hours. But this is what they have available right now, and it shows that 8 hour windows, like if you did really want to look into that and get a little bit geeky, could show like a higher risk of cardiovascular death. Makes sense. So if you're looking into the long term effects, I wouldn't be really looking into fasting. But here's the thing that a lot of studies do not do, which is going to benefit you, is they probably, number one is like it's really, really hard to control energy balance and energy intake and macronutrient. For anyone that doesn't know, macronutrients are just protein, carbohydrates, fats, and I would say alcohol is a kind of macronutrient if because the way it gets used. But I'd say water is a macronutrient. It just doesn't get said that way. And then you have micronutrients, which are obviously vitamins, minerals. All you probably know that stuff. I just don't want to get lost here. And it's about finding out like how someone can set themselves up for success, right? So if you were to look into it, like somebody doing that and they have good control of that and they probably limit like overeating, limit binging, limit stress, limit like what you call say excessive amounts of cheat meals all the time and like probably not doing anything Fridays, Saturdays and Sundays, binging on them weekends and keep falling off all the time, like you might have a different problem, or that individual might have a different problem. They might have a massive different problem that like they're probably using fasting as a way to extrinsically motivate them to be able to stick to something. Makes sense? Where when they're actually sticking to something and trying to stick to someone, they're still binging in the evening. They're still binging non-stop. They're overeating in the evening. Because this is what's not spoken about fasting. A lot of people, even when working it, what they'll do is they'll save calories throughout the day to have a binge in the evening. Makes sense? To binge and just sit there and devour themselves, it might impact their sleep, it might impact their training performance, and this alone could impact their circadian rhythms and cause, because it's called chrononutrition, which is like for your circadian rhythms. You get me? Your 24-hour body clock. Now, the thing is that like if you were actually looking at this, the other thing that they didn't control inside of this was weight training, resist exercise, right? So do you ever notice, guys? I know a lot of you are probably coaches and stuff like that watching this, and everybody else is like, if you look into, say, like fatigue management, there's one principle that stands the test today, and that is stimulus to fatigue ratio inside of training. And that is like, can you, like, there's what you can do, and there's what you can actually recover from. Now, yesterday I was speaking with a client, right? Very, very intelligent guy, unbelievably intelligent athlete, plays at high level sports still today at nearly 50 years of age. Amazing individual. And I was like, you have a busy schedule. I says, like, you have an unbelievable busy, you're managing a football team, you're doing jiu-jitsu, you're training, you're playing still at high levels of sports. I says, look, I says, did you ever hear of like the minimum? Did you ever look into the science today? I says to him of the minimum effective volume needed to be able to create a training stimulus, be able to make adaptations, which means getting results with the minimum amount of time available to do that. And he says, no, tell me more about that, Ray. Sure. And then I broke down about, like, you've probably heard of Mike Mensers. I broke down Mike Zordos's, Dr. Mike Zordos is probably known from monthly applications and strength sports. I looked into their, told them about their research, and then I told them about like different people throughout that. And it says, if you look at what all these are saying, if you actually get somebody that trains, for anyone that doesn't know, a rate of perceived exertion is just the intensity, the gauge of intensity that an individual is training in the gym. So, like, meaning when they're going under load, what intensities they're actually training at. Because, like, what I'm saying is, you can go to the gym 7 days a week, but the question I always say to someone, what are you actually doing in the gym? Like, what are you doing in the gym? Because if you're training at high RPE, between 8 and 9 RPE, which means 80 to 90% intensity and maxing out, it's really hard to go to the gym every day because you're so sore, you're probably tired, you probably can't recover from it. And the training program that you're on is giving you so much success, so much muscle growth, strength, wherever you're looking to do, mobility, movement, that you struggle to go to the gym 7 days a week. Do you know where I'm coming from? And if you're on a good training program, like these principles still stand the test of time. 24 to 72 hours for your muscles to recover, to be able and still growing muscle tissue if you're on a right controlled exercise training program. And that's what I'm saying about most of these studies. When I done my research on the gut microbiome and how it actually relates to exercise without supplementations, without any of what they say on the internet, this stuff, I took everything out. And what way I created an angle inside of my studies, which Real Madrid were absolutely like the university says, gave me 91% on my thesis because I looked into controlled exercise. And rarely does studies control exercise and energy intake and macronutrients. It says, right, these participants actually were actually training at an intensity, right? Because I know some of you are technical, like me, but like creatine kinase, which is an enzyme, which is actually is a measurement of exercise intensity, and that was high in the blood of some of the participants that I looked at in the studies. So we know, right, they have exercise. Now we can see like whether they're making a change significantly. So Going back to, if you look into these fasting studies, like, if my clients, the people that actually choose me, that understand, or anybody I was giving information to, were like, which is nothing like, or even myself or anybody, is like fasting in the mornings for the purpose to binge in the evening and be sitting there with an eating disorder in the evening. Do I think fasting is working for that person? I'll leave you to answer that. I don't think so. I don't think so whatsoever. I do not believe so whatsoever. Whereas, I'm going to give you a little bit more of research, guys, right? And I'm just going to break it down real simple. There's a guy out of, I think he's out of Loughborough University in the United Kingdom. His name is James Betts. And he's done the breakfast studies. I think he's running this project 10 to 15 years. And he has want the studies, no problem whatsoever. The podcast, anything like that. And I even seen that he done some like research where he gave people breakfast, you get me? And like the others didn't have breakfast. But the ones that had breakfast, and you probably noticed this, actually expanded more energy over a couple of weeks period than the ones that didn't have breakfast. And the reason why is that, like, a lot of the times, you've probably noticed, when you have, say, carbohydrates, or you didn't enjoy your breakfast, you could probably expand more energy. But if that carbohydrates in the morning cause you to probably overeat throughout the day, to be having changes in your blood glucose throughout the day, have you feeling sleepy throughout the day, have you feeling like really, really fatigued, I don't think that would benefit you. Am I making sense? So don't get lost on what I'm saying or going off track. I think fasting is extremely beneficial. I do it myself. I get loads of the clients that I work with to do it. I get a load of people to do it, depending on how you want to set yourself up, how you can set yourself up for success. Do I believe that fasting is beneficial for an athlete that wants to maximize their training performance, or even a person going to the gym that wants to maximize their training performance? First off, for any coaches, for anyone that's following this, I'd recommend looking into the experimentations done by Oscar Drop on carbohydrate metabolism, and looking at the work done on carbohydrate metabolism and protein metabolism in general for pre and post workout nutrition. Anyone that thinks that that doesn't work, I think they need to actually go and look really, really deep into the research. Do I think fasting would be better for muscle gain or growth or performance than a carbohydrate fed with protein and hydration? Absolutely not. Under no circumstances do I believe that it would. Would I believe that fasting is a great way for people like myself to able to set ourselves up for successful fat loss, and to able to set ourselves up for easy nutrition and training and be adherent to something? Absolutely. Do I believe that when an individual eats inside of a good caloric balance and has good composition, food composition of macronutrients, micronutrients, good sleep, not causing too much stress, fatigue, good hormonal profile? Absolutely. It works wonders, and it will always work wonders, and it's great. But the whole point of this today is, just when something comes out inside the research, it doesn't mean that it's valid or it's relevant to an individual or relevant to this time available right now. And that's why even like a lot of coaches I work with, anybody that, I'll always help people with their clients. I'll always mentor other people how to actually perceive research, how to actually look into it, and how to actually come up with the right conclusions for you to be able to probably apply science to practice inside of individuals, to be able to simplify scientific evidence. So, my key takeaways for everybody here that's following this, right, is find something that works for you, all right? Find something that you can stick to, that's easy for you to do, that doesn't do this, right? Here's some indicators I'd look out for, guys, all right? If you're constantly thinking about food all the time, I don't think that's good. Sorry to, I'm not disheartening on anybody. I was an overeater for years. My nickname used to be Fat Ray up until I was about 20 years of age. Honestly, I noticed, like, I went through 12-step programs in Overeaters Anonymous. Like, I'm not afraid to say that. I'm proud of myself for doing that. You get me? I'm proud of myself for having the willingness to walk into them rooms and go through a 12-step program because I struggled with eating disorders. And I tell you what, see all them fat loss plans, fitness modeling, all that kind of stuff, that may work for many other people. That did not help me one bit. So if I'm on an 8 hour restricted time window, which I do, but if that was leading me to binges, I'd get off it myself. And if it was anybody else, I'd get off it. But the way I do this now is that, like, I look into, like, for example, like, this is easy. You know what? I'm busy throughout the mornings. I don't want to be going around thinking the food. I just have 2 meals a day, sometimes three. You know, it's easy. No binging inside a caloric control. Makes sense. It's working for me. And then the next thing you should look into with your nutrition plan is, does it align with your values? Does it actually align with your culture? Does it allow you a little bit of food freedom to be able to have a little bit of freedom around what you're doing inside your nutrition? To be able to have like a social life with your friends? To be able to go out and explore a new social life, a new like social environment. Like, let's say for example, like, you're on a nutrition plan, right, and stuff like that, and then you go out, like, we play paddle here in Spain, paddle. So let's say I go out to paddle and the people say, we're going for a burger and we're going to Five Guys next, Ray. Do you want to go or do you want to join us? Imagine me saying, I'm going to go back to stick to this diet plan. I'm going to go home to the house. I'm going to self-isolate. I'm going to sit in. I'm going to feel miserable. Instead of just knowing that, like, right, I'm able to have a little bit of food freedom here. I'm able to control myself here, go out and have a meal, go out with my friends and get back on track. To me, that's sustainable nutrition. That is like real adherence to a plan. And that is what I preach to individuals. Now, the other thing that I would be looking into, like, if you wanted to look into how to make nutrition really, really work for you, is like to actually find out like this, right? Let's say, oh, yeah, you are like living in a place, right? Wherever you're living, go and like learn how to educate yourself on nutrition a little bit. Like, become resourceful, and it's okay to like let's say people say my fitness pal or these tracking apps are crap, right? Or they cause eating disorders, they're too stressful, or they're too like that. Look, I agree that basically, on many terms here, giving somebody a coach giving somebody an app and saying track your macros is terrible coaching, in my opinion. Like, it's terrible coaching. Let's call it for what it is. A person that actually goes and says, look, educates an individual and doesn't give them loads of videos and doesn't give them, just educates them and says, like, look, here's the thing. You see this meal structure that we're on, or this is what protein is, this is what carbohydrates are. These are really good carbohydrates. And like, the thing about these carbohydrates are they also contain this kind of fiber and this kind of vitamins and minerals. And you see these fats, well, these are fats, these are monounsaturated fats, these are saturated fats. And what these do is X, Y, and Z. Makes sense. Now, what I would recommend is that, like, when you are going to use this app, we're just using this for a tactic. We're just using this to not become obsessive. We're using this as a tool to be able to learn you how to educate what's actually in food and what energy balance looks like, and to raise awareness to what you're consuming. Am I making sense? Just to raise awareness of like what's inside of these foods. It's not for the rest of your life, and it never should be. And I'm allowed. I know shouldn't be a great word. It should be just a tool to use at the time available for the person to become more educated and more self-aware to what they're actually doing and what's inside of certain foods, and what way that you could probably like learn how to allow flexibility inside of your nutrition too. Makes sense. So like, it's about finding out what actually works for you and looking at these as tasks. Now, the person I'm speaking about now is probably watching, but like, I have an amazing client that like struggling with like a gut microbiota issue and struggling with like gut things for a long time, right? And I always remember that like, the more I was able to educate this person and allow the person to educate themselves, the more confident and competent they became inside of that practice. They started to be educating on fields, and then like because the thing about the gut microbiome, guys, all you see is I think people overcomplicate this thing. Number one is it's only a new topic. The research is just not there yet. But I'll tell you one thing, if you looked into Monash University, they are absolutely incredible. And you don't have to go around cutting out like muesli bars or different foods. It's about finding out the foods that an individual can digest, absorb, and everybody is uniquely different with their gut, with their intestines and the large colon. Everybody's gut is totally different to each individual. And that's what I'm saying. So, like, let's say you went onto a diet, right? Or some kind of diet, or you're on some kind of fast, and you are getting like vomiting, irritability, pains in your stomach all the time, feeling like that, like you are constantly stressed and cognitive dysfunction all the time, and you're always feeling bloated. Like, do you think maybe that diet or that nutrition plan or training plan is not for you? Make sense? Do you know where I'm coming from? Maybe it's time to step back, but you don't have to go on a big, extreme, rigid diet to make these changes. What happens is you could look into a couple of things like FODMAPs, fermentable carbohydrates. You could look into like irritable bowel syndrome, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. But you could just remove a couple of things for a short duration of time. And then, like, it's not about like removing them for the rest of your life. You can reintroduce these foods back in. Make sense? Reintroduce them over time. So, like, it's finding the nutrition plan, the diet plan that is suited and easy for you to do. The other thing now for the key takeaways of all this is just to let you know, right, that fatigue changes everything. And what I mean is, if you are doing a training program that has you demotivated, right, you're not seeing any progress from it whatsoever. You're still looking the same after about a year or two in the gym, but you think like that's all willpower, it's all mindset. That's not mindset. That's not mindset. Real mindset is when you're making progression in the gym, when you're actually making a significant change over like 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 2 years. You're makes sense. You're getting stronger, you're getting more athletic, you're getting more quicker, you're able to run at like faster speeds in shorter durations of time. Like just loads of different stuff, right? So if you're on a training program and you're not going around feeling in pain all the time and feeling that you have all these aches, stuff like that, you're constantly getting sick all the time. You have upper respiratory tract infections. You are probably the other one is your sleep is impacted. You're up all night. You're waking up throughout the night. You're constantly stressed all the time. Like I'd really look into the training program that you're actually doing. And like if I was to make a recommendation on training based on 17 years in the fitness industry and studying and in the trenches, what would I recommend? I honestly don't think that we need more than 3 days of a good weight training program a week. That's actually, now I'm on about making a change where they're actually progressively overloading, where they're actually getting stronger and they have all that tracked, right? Although you can go into a 4 day training split, I'm not doubting that 5 days, 6 days, but is that relevant to an individual? Is that relevant and specific to you? Does that allow you the time to be able to do that? Make sense? Does that allow you to be able to be consistent to that? Am I making sense? Because like if you're on a calorie deficit and you're in an extreme like that and you're dieting, we all know with dieting that the goal is to actually retain muscle and to be able to retain what we call muscle protein synthesis, which is the creation of new proteins, isn't it? Because in a diet, in a calorie deficit, not many people talk about, again, like looking into these 8 hour like restrictions and stuff, muscle protein synthesis goes down. So muscle loss becomes higher, doesn't it, in a diet? Makes sense. So like why would you want to train 6 days a week in a diet phase? Makes sense. Would it not be like maybe if you're bulking and you had control of that, you might be someone like you might like to go to the gym. You might enjoy going to the gym. But don't just go to the gym without wanting to make significant changes. Like go to the gym and train with a purpose and you believe in it more. That's real mindset. Makes sense. So just thinking about that, like, right, what is the purpose of why do I want to train at this amount of times? And then another thing that gets a bad rap in the fitness industry, in my opinion, is cardio, right? Like people think, oh yeah, not everybody's a bodybuilder. Not everybody is a fitness model. Like they're not though. Like, are you trying to tell me that cardiovascular training cannot increase the function of a human being's mitochondria? Are you telling me that cardiovascular training consistently cannot actually increase angiogenesis, which is the creation and building of new blood vessels? Like, be honest. Are you trying to tell me that it cannot increase training capacity inside of an individual, like making that person more fitter and able to actually train? Are you saying that it cannot increase fat burning inside of it and the oxidation of lipolysis, and it cannot increase metabolic flexibility while being able to teach our body how to use carbohydrates and fats for fuel? Of course it can. Absolutely, I can. Like, just going to look into that. So, like, in terms of cardiovascular work, imagine you looking and like not only. Sorry, I'm going off topic, but do you ever notice when you do a good cardio session, guys? You just go and you do a run, like half an hour, 45 minutes. You feel brilliant. Like the mental aspect of it is unbelievable. You get me? But like, I just make one recommendation. I'm going to give you a little bit of coaching today, and I got a couple of. I get like boxers and athletes and everyone to do this. I don't look at the difference between an athlete and a fitness enthusiast like me or you or stuff like that. But like, I get them to run. Like, I got like a person to run like he was doing 6 kilometers a day or 6 miles, and I says, "How much can you do that in time?" Because when you are able to do cardiovascular work for time and you're able to reduce it, lactic acid, the production of lactic acid, you hit lactate thresholds, don't you? And most people stop due to fatigue with lactate thresholds, but you actually have 1 to 2 thresholds to be able to do continuous training where you're able to regenerate ATP at higher rates and faster speeds. Makes sense? And that's where you're making progression with cardiovascular work, where you're able to actually increase your speed and doing it in less amount of time and improving your how you adapt aerobically to a training program. That's all that. So like I'd recommend looking into like doing your cardiovascular work for a shorter amount of time and the amount of speed you can do that and challenge yourself and maybe look into like 1 to 2 cardio sessions a week, 3 resistance training. You might have your own personal preference. I'm just giving general recommendations of what I would recommend. And maybe then on the weekend, I don't know, get out and play a few sports, join an activity, get out and start hanging around with your friends, going and doing something new that you have been blocking off, like go and join meetup.com. Join meetup.com, look for different kind of stuff to do. Go hiking, go and do a swimming, go and do a little bit of yoga, try it out. Explore fitness and make it enjoyable, realistic and sustainable. And I'll look into these like studies that we're doing today and whatever's working for you, continue to do that. Continue to stick with everything that's working for you right now. Because you know what? You're enjoying it. And that's the most important part. You're enjoying your fitness. I'll let you go. I'm gonna shoot out. I need to get off here now because I could just keep ranting on for hours and before you know it, everyone will get lost and bored. Speeches all soon. Hasta luego, all my Spanish friends.